right.
Hello.
Welcome back.
We are live.
We are live and we are alive. Welcome back to the Spoken Openness podcast. This is episode 4.
Yeah.
It's funny, a lot of podcasts, they're like, welcome back to, this is episode 255. We're like, this is episode
This is
4.
episode 4. Yeah. This
Um,
is early days.
Early days. But you know what's
Welcome,
interesting
everyone.
is that it adds up pretty quick. Like I thought it was maybe after we changed the first ones to be testers.
Mm.
I thought this would be maybe 2 or 3, but it's 4. So
Yeah.
yeah, here's to starting the practice.
Yeah. Um, Last podcast we finished with a little talk on mornings, excuse
Mm-hmm.
me, and snoozing, and
Yeah.
that was kind of like the last words of last sesh. So I wanted to start this one by asking you, how's
Mm-hmm.
your morning, etc. You know?
I'm lucky today because I can answer positively. Over the
Hmm.
weekend, it was not. I, slept in and ate poorly and didn't really exercise. But I think, like we've talked about before, that gave me some of that motivation of the pendulum, and that gave me motivation to make today pretty good. So phones were off using this old watch for an alarm, which makes it hard, as I was mentioning, to hit the snooze button. So it went off, got up, felt tired, but just
Hmm.
forced myself up, went for a run, did some meditating, and yeah, today was a good flow in the morning. So we'll see if I can keep that up. It's all about keeping it up, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, how was
Consistency.
how was your morning?
I snoozed. I
Nice.
I fooled myself into
I'm
thinking that
jealous.
I could use an extra hour,
Mm-hmm.
and I used that. And I guess the self fooling worked a little bit. I did wake up more refreshed
Mm-hmm.
because of the idea that I slept in a little bit more. That I I don't think that's the case at all. I think that snooze time is just you trying to sleep a little more, but it's most of the times I think it hurts a little bit more than it helps
Mm-hmm.
because you start a new sleep cycle and then you cut it when the
Mm-hmm.
snooze alarm comes again.
Yeah.
But this time it just felt like one more hour really did help.
Yeah.
And then instead of meditating, I put on my earphones and I listen to a podcast because I think it helps me with English and verbal fluency in English.
Yeah.
So kind of getting in the English zone
Mm-hmm.
from 3 days of not speaking English.
Yeah.
So I think that helps. I'd like to think that helps so that today I'm a little bit more um, fluent because I'm always trying to like catch the right word. But I do that
Yeah.
in Spanish a lot too because I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to like be very specific. But it takes a little bit longer to find. Sometimes I have to think in the Spanish word and then get the translation.
Yeah.
But there's some other conversations, I'm sure you know, where I'm really thinking in English because of the
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, that's what I did today.
You have a massive, I have a massive advantage. And I don't even think I'm necessarily better at reaching for words. I'm often like, I feel like in conversation, if I like in my day to day life outside, or if I'm talking to someone, I would love to be so clear in what I'm saying when I'm talking to them that the amount of time that it would take for me to do that would make me seem so strange. So a lot of conversations I just kind of like power through, and sometimes it's automatic and sometimes I get in a little bit of that
Mm.
intentionality. But for the most part, I wish I could stand there for like 8 seconds really think about what they said or what they asked, consider how I would like to respond, how my current situation might be influencing it,
Yeah.
and this whole time people would be like, uh,
Yeah, looking at their yeah.
yeah, but that could be anything like, how's your day going? You know?
Hmm. Yeah, of course. Because you
So
don't want to be the guy that's just like, yeah, great, yeah, just like small
I
talk.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just, yeah, it's so
It depends
impersonal.
how they ask to, how you
Right,
receive the question. Yeah.
right. But that also takes time to consider that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a lose lose a little bit. But maybe
Mm.
it's a habit that gets better, or not a habit, but a muscle that you can work on, where you're able to more quickly uh, have your speech be
Yeah.
be aligned with intentionality and all that stuff. Whereas, I think I'm better with writing. I think I'm better at that with writing personally than speaking.
Yeah, I could testify to that.
Yeah.
You're a fast typer and you yeah.
I think I
But
think it's not
here's the thing.
speed. Yeah, I think it's closer to what I want to say or how I want to say it when I write rather than
The
speak.
filtering from mind to fingers, that's
Yeah,
better
yeah,
for
yeah.
you. It feels good.
Yeah, well, here's something we can talk about, but I have always, and I don't mean to cut you off. I want to hear what you're going to say, but I just wanted to throw out the idea that I think in feelings, not words.
Yeah.
I don't know if the jury's out on whether or not we think in words or not. I think there's a lot to the argument that words allow,
Mhm.
but I think in general, I have the feeling of what it is I want to say, and then I have to translate an abstract, ambiguous feeling into language, and that's always
Sure.
frustrating for me. But yeah,
I think that's frustrating for everyone who tries to be specific with their thoughts, because thoughts aren't really specific unless you sort of materialize them into either spoken word or written word.
yeah,
And the practice and the process of doing that, that's I think where the practice is, because you have to choose the words and formulate proper sentences.
yeah,
Sometimes I think very clear things to me, but then when I think of how I'm going to express them, the wording has to change. The sentence structure has to be different for the message to
hmm,
be clear enough. Because I think you're responsible not only for what you're expressing, but also for trying your best so that the other person understands you.
right.
Um, you can be responsible for the other person understanding, but you're responsible for like trying your best to help the other person get exactly what you're saying. And
Right.
I'd also believe you're either a fast talker or you're not. I don't think it has to do with IQ or either yeah, it has to do with IQ. But what I'm saying is, for
Yeah.
example, I've been listening to um, lots of minds, but two that are really fast, very fast speakers, Ben Shapiro and
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk, for example. Those two
Yeah.
guys there, they talk so fast and with so much energy, and they're
Yeah.
so precise in what they're saying that I'm almost like, is it that that's just not me?
Hmm.
Um, or is it that these guys have practiced both their cognitive ability and their actual physical ability to speak fast much more than me,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's both. It's weird. It's like a dance between your formulation of ideas and the translating of that into speech. And I think that
Mm.
there's different relationships that can emerge in that, in different, obviously, personality types and experience and all that stuff. But I also think that um, you can connect to different wavelengths on a personal level. Like I think that my I would either sit in really slow or really fast. And
Mm,
what I would like to do, and what I think is a good thing about this podcast, is working on medium, measured, kind of really
sure.
intentional. Um, and Yeah, it's interesting because I think if I go really fast, it's allow because it allows your mind to move to the next thing faster because you're just trying to keep up with the words, and it allows you to say a
Mm,
lot really fast and then formulate new things. um, and and I think that that's something that you would practice. It would become natural, and it would become something that you're used to. I don't
right.
know what. I guess one thing to consider is, and what you mentioned was the a large point of what you're saying is to have the other person understand you, and that's massive. And I think your rate of speech should change depending
Mm,
on the situation, and that's
totally.
conscious communicating, right?
Yeah.
um, I tend to not realize when I'm using words or phrases or ideas that are referenced to things that I've read or things that I um, something I listen to, without fully framing what I'm saying in a way that could be approachable to someone who hasn't read that or seen that or consumed that
Right.
reference.
Hmm.
And then it gets a miscommunication or something happens, and that's something that I'm really practicing on, is being aware of when
Sure.
of incorporating things that I've read or looked into in the proper way.
Some things you have to savor them. Some things you have to say them as fluently as possible, and so that the whole kind of paragraph in your head
Right.
falls right. But some other things you have to take your time and kind of savor them, like say them slowly and with all the subtext,
Hmm.
right? I mean, um, body language is also very
Right.
important. And if you're speaking very fast, it tends to be very mechanical in that way, that there's
Yeah.
not much room to have facial expressions in every, not every word, but um, I guess what I'm saying, there's use for both fast talking and slow pace,
Yeah.
find the right word, just like I'm doing right now, and kind of
Yeah.
like using my body to express myself, which is unconscious, of course.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're always speaking very fast, you can lose some of that.
Hmm.
Um, and also, if you're, I think if you're like sharing something very meaningful and valuable, almost philosophical, you have to slow it down, almost as if it were poetry or something. You can't
Yeah.
just like, I think
Also,
so.
yeah, and I agree, and I don't think, not in like a performance way. Like
Mm,
how can I get the most? It's not like acting choices of how can I
it's not like
perform
I,
this.
yeah.
It's about understanding. It's totally about understanding, because some
Yeah.
things, because going back to the idea that thoughts are deeply connected to feelings, or that feelings are kind of coexisting with thoughts that are pre um, lingual, that are like before
Yeah.
and some of those are they're varied in those feelings, and so they would require different words, sentence structure, and also um, delivery
Hmm.
in order to convey to someone else the same feeling through language. I think that that's a really, um, yeah, language is such an incredible technology. It's telepathy. It's really telepathy.
Yeah. It is the technology. It is the probably the did we invent or discover language? Is that a dumb question? I've never
Uh,
really did we is it an invention or is it a discovery? Because there's people that say that we discovered math. We didn't invent
right.
math, for example, because it's like embedded in the universe. So we were able
Yeah, I don't know.
to see it.
It's a
Yeah,
very
it's
abstract
crazy.
question. I think when it comes to math, I think that's I totally agree that it's clearly it exists and we oh, I lost my camera.
You're.
Wow, this is my turn.
Now it's on you, my friend, my brother friend. What's going on? Is
Uh,
it
no
cable
idea.
management? Okay, so this is probably a great time to have a sponsor announcement. This episode is sponsored by the
Hmm.
Black Screen United of America. There you go. You're back. You're not.
I'm not back.
You're almost back.
Let me try to. Let's turn my camera off and on. Let's see if that works.
Yeah.
I apologize for this.
Let's make a public an apology and let everyone know that we're trying our best to resolve these technical issues at the moment. Because technology is a crazy thing. It's probably your battery. Oh, you're back. You were back for a second and now you're gone. Um,
I know what it
Also,
is.
what is it?
It was my fault.
This is probably the most. Oh, you weren't. You were. Yeah, your battery died. You weren't connected directly to the power source.
Yeah, you heard?
No, I'm imagining that's what happened. This is probably the most interesting part in the podcast. Like, probably viewers are like, what's gonna happen? Or maybe everyone just left. Um,
I
and
think
by
I
everyone, I mean maybe no one.
I should come back. Did you see that? I got a message.
Yeah, a flash.
A flash. Maybe maybe I need to give it five seconds. I might give it 5 seconds, but I'm gonna finish the thought. So this is gonna be
Please,
audio.
yeah.
This is gonna be audio
Nice.
only,
The audio section of the.
so that I don't kill the flow. I apologize, but this is
It's good.
anything can happen on Spoken Openness
It's part of
podcast.
the. Yeah, it's
You
part of the
know,
flow.
someone could they could hit their glasses. Someone could spill some coffee. A battery
Yeah.
might die. Someone might go into a crazy language tongue all of a sudden,
All of a
channeling some
sudden,
other dimension.
it's happened before. We don't discard that.
Anything can happen on Spoken Openness podcast.
Yeah.
You never know. Batteries die. It's crazy. My thought was that speaking from a cave. Uh,
This is
yeah,
exciting.
I think math was uncovered for sure because
Mm,
you can't argue with the fact that if you have one stick and then you add another stick, there's two sticks. It's like
right.
it's
But
clear.
language is some other mystery.
Language is another mystery. I think it was an invention. I think it was an invention that of course was able to exist based on the laws of the universe and structures that allowed it to occur in the mind and in sound and all of that stuff.
We may be getting to Stone Ape theory here, but maybe.
There's that could have that is influenced by it for sure. Very
Yeah.
interesting theory. I'm back.
You are nice.
Hey
Hello.
everyone. So sorry for the power outage there. The whole block went down.
Yeah, it was a national issue.
It was a national issue, and yeah, this is what happens in Canada, you guys. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So that was my entire, and that was my bad. I didn't have it plugged into a power supply.
I'm gonna go black in probably 30 minutes. But I hope it's only like a flash. You won't even notice it.
It'll be quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really kills flow. Hey.
Yeah, dude.
It
Um,
kills the mind flow.
it does, but that's why I was apologizing so much last
Yeah.
time it happened to me. I was like, no.
Yeah.
But let's just continue. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think you should feel bad at all. It happens. That's tech. That's just tech.
I have a question. Do you think that language is going to evolve into something even more able to convey someone's the feeling or non-lingual understanding? Do you think that that's going to happen? I can, you know, is that a
Well, I think
possibility?
that's happening as we speak. I think language is ever evolving. It's like a living organism. It
Yeah.
becomes more specific. I think the way it grows, it's towards specificity. That's why you get people like us debating for half an hour on the meaning of a single word. So that you can say, well, this would be this, and then we used to think it was like the same thing, but for example, last time we were talking about mindset
Yeah.
and state of mind and trying like to figure out. I think that's what happens um, in a collective sense, so that we start using new words.
I agree.
I
I
don't
think.
know. Yeah.
Um, do you agree with the notion that words are actually maybe they're more important than ever, but that actual definition and proper use of words is decreasing, and people are more interested in the vibe of what you're saying and more interested in like I kind of get what you're saying, but historically or maybe in the past there was a lot more emphasis on preciseness and use of language. Uh, like if you read, you know, English literature and like just the
Mm-hmm.
when language was used by a more limited group of people who are highly educated and very excellent in their use, the standard was like basically very high, and the only people who participated were those that had a very high ability. Whereas now it's like cell phone, just like yo, like
Yeah.
poor, and I think that we're getting more and more used to people just getting the vibe of what people are saying,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know?
I think, yeah, I think that's true, but I wouldn't generalize it.
Yeah.
It's probably just what we see online.
100%.
Um, Educated people that are not very educated, but the little education they have allows them to express themselves and use tech and get involved in communities and have an opinion, but
Yeah.
they're not really using a specific language. Or they're not really stopping to really think and be responsible for what they're saying. So mostly it's like I'm trying the best to vomit my opinion out there. Um, but I would say that the counterpart exists as well, that there's more people with more vocabulary and more language tools and language background to have more proper conversations and more well-formed opinions on stuff. But that's probably more underground because there's more
Yeah.
noise. There's I think with every kind of skill or artistic discipline, there's more garbage. There's like because more people can have opinions. More people
Yeah.
can make short movies online or take photographs. So there's more bad shit going on. Like there's
Yeah.
more garbage, I'd say.
Yeah, it's so I guess there's two possibilities. One possibility is there's more noise and more garbage, but through that garbage there's simultaneously more excelling and a larger amount of excellence,
Hmm.
but also a massive amount of noise and garbage. I've
So that
definitely
to
noticed that
stand
in
out, you have to be much, much better and much more careful and maybe.
or you need to be more angry or emotional or just get headlines or be the most
Mhm.
reactionary, um, and that's a whole other topic. But
It
I
depends
definitely,
what your intention is.
yeah, I noticed this phenomena with music. There's so much music, and anyone and everyone is making it, and it takes a lot more time to find something in my mind that feels originally motivated, honest, and interesting. Um, I find that because there's so much, I think there's a much there's become there now exists kind of a lack in general authenticity in in art, almost, I would argue, because there's a tendency to want to replicate what's successful because there's so much, and success, people are so massive, and there's the influences are so clear, and that so much has happened in the past, so people are following patterns that have succeeded. um, but it's I I don't connect to anything more, I think, than music that feels like it's coming from a genuine place in the creator. And I guess that's the same with film. I guess that's the same with any
Yeah,
artistic expression. But it's harder and harder to find that, I think, and you got to spend more and more time searching. Um,
sure.
do you
But I
agree
think
with that?
it's harder to find it because of the noise and
Mm,
all the info overload
yeah.
and just the millions of people doing the same thing. But it's easier to find it than I'd say any time before.
Yeah. You're right.
um,
You're right. Yeah, you can put on a
yeah.
spot you any program and just say make me a random thing that sounds like this
Hmm.
and uncover it. Yeah.
Yeah. Even live stream,
Mhm.
for example, there's musicians doing live stream that you
Mhm.
do that and
Mhm.
you're putting yourself out there. And I'm sure people are thinking that like, oh, here's music that feels authentic, and
I
it's
hope
this
so.
guy at home. Well, yeah, I know it's your thing. I know it's your
Yeah.
thing, and like I'm crediting you for it. But I think that's exactly it. It's easier because like you have the technology to stream yourself and
Right.
your authentic music.
But I would
So,
also need to get through the noise
mhm.
of, man, these platforms. All you go there and the things that pop up, man. The live streaming culture is so interesting, and it's getting massive.
Yeah.
It's so many guys with like a similar haircut. They all have their guitar right at the webcam. Night
Yeah.
fathers the same time, and like, and then they're like,
Right.
oh yeah, hey, what's up, guys? And it's all like,
Mhm, mhm.
it's like a similar, it's like a genre, it's like such a genre, it's massive, and
Mm,
that's
and they
but
have like their list of high tippers and like the
yeah, yeah,
community is very active. And
yeah.
but have you ever maybe kind of accidentally clicked on one that where you're like, why am I watching, why did I click this, why am I
Uh-huh.
watching you?
Uh-huh.
I should have never even heard you.
Well, yeah, some of them pop them up
Mhm, exactly.
without you
If you go
requesting,
into just
which
younow.com, it just
yeah,
automatically
yeah,
reproduces sponsored by
which
you now.
I hope they do with this podcast so that people can check it out.
But we're not
We're not streaming on
we're
there
not
now.
streaming there right
We're
now.
using a new platform. We're using
Yeah,
joycaster.co instead of caster.io instead of restream
yeah.
dot whatever it was.
We tried. Yeah,
And I used to think, just a quick tech update, I used to think that it was problems with the streaming services, but it actually came down to my encoder settings because Periscope is more happy with a lower bitrate audio and video. So hopefully I've rectified that. And I think I saw a quick hiccup in the stream, but I think we're still live,
yeah, we are.
and that's cool.
And we are live.
We are live.
Just checking. So this learning curve
Exhilarating.
that we're going through has hasn't been very pleasant, but we're going through it. Like there's no
Yeah.
other. We need to go through that tech learning curve, and we'll mention some of it from here
Hmm.
to there. Is that
We can
sorry?
mention, yeah. Should we be
Good.
mentioning it? We have zero, oh, to the zero
Uh,
listeners out there. Give us your
yeah,
feedback. Give us your comments. Uh, I'm sure there's
it's
people who set up an account and they are just like immediately like perfect streaming. They're like, it
yeah.
works fine. They're
Maybe
like, what are you guys working on?
what's that learning curve? You just stream and it's easy. Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe we're also
just getting
trying
used
it
to it.
to do high quality audio and video, and
Yeah, we'll see
it's
if
pretty
that
good, I
works.
think.
Yeah,
So language, back to language.
yeah.
It's good to sometimes just breathe, um, try to stop the flow of thought so that new info can come.
Hmm.
Maybe we need to segue. Maybe we need to like I don't know.
Hey, you had some things about Tawai that you disagreed with. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, dude, that we could talk about that. It's not like I disagree.
Right, right, right.
It's not like
Hmm.
oh I don't agree with this because it's not a documentary that where every info is representative of either Bruce Perry or the documentary, right?
Yeah,
He's not he's not responsible for everything that is said there. I mostly disagreed with the lawyers, the New York lawyers, or was it maybe London or two lawyers that
I,
had a little bit of
I don't think they were lawyers. I think they were anthropologists from a university. No,
had the idea they were lawyers,
I
but
don't think
I
so.
think you're right. They were anthropologists.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that had done a lot of research on different nomadic hunter-gatherer cultures.
Yeah, those guys. They were walking in a
Hmm.
park and just talking. Mostly the guy was talking and the girl was just walking with
I
them.
don't think they were lawyers.
Okay,
Maybe they were.
I don't know why. I thought, yeah.
What were the thought? What thoughts were they? So this was from a documentary by Bruce Perry called Tawai. It's I've been
Mm,
waiting a really long time to watch it, and I think we mentioned it on a previous stream. But his BBC Tribe series and are just some of my favorite content or media.
which it's almost like 10 years old,
Almost like 10
right?
years old.
Yeah.
He embeds himself in
The
different
guy is crazy.
primitive cultures. I don't want to say
Hmm.
primitive because it sounds like I'm it's looking down on
Hmm.
it, but
Right.
um, people who have sustained their way of life without modernizing for a very long time, and he embeds himself in
Tribes.
the tribes, and he does everything that they do, and it's the
Hmm.
least it's the least infected version of
Exactly.
that I've seen. I've
That's
seen a
his great, maybe his greatest virtue is that he's
mhm.
very good at just being open,
Yeah.
not trying to interfere in any way, just
Yeah.
willing to learn, completely willing to learn. That's, I think, probably
Yeah,
the greatest.
and he cares about people. You can see that he
Mm,
really cares about what he's doing, and he doesn't judge. And it's not about the it's not about the TV show, which I think is what happens with a lot of those, like whatever, the out in the wild, in the wild, in the out in the
mm,
nowhere, all those it's like it becomes about the TV show. Whereas for him,
yeah,
I think he really loves spending time with the different groups, and it's fascinating. And so he basically will tell them, hey, I want to do everything that you guys do. So he hunts, he tries to go barefoot and his feet get ripped up, and he's just like, well, looks like my shoes help me because my feet are not adapted. And he just goes with it, and he's very open. He'll go through some of the
right.
rituals with them, and
He also I think he was a Marine, and he's very high
yeah,
on resistance and fitness, and he does very crazy high endurance
yeah,
adventures.
yeah.
He's
There,
a
it's a phenomenal
trekker, and
show.
yeah,
Phenomenal show. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's something that when I watch one of those shows, I don't turn it off going, what time is it? Oh man, wow, so much time has gone
exactly.
by. It feels valuable, which
Hmm.
I'm trying to become more aware of when I'm watching stuff, is to afterwards see what I feel like in relation to spending that time, you
And
know?
it's not only because we're inclined towards that topics, or because we like
Right.
anthropology, or it's because he's a very good communicator,
Yeah.
and the approach in which he goes, the approach in which he approaches the
The approach he
tribes,
takes?
the approach he takes is
Yeah.
spot on. It's
Yeah.
almost like um, I think of him almost as a anthropology, Louis Theroux anthropology,
Yeah.
in the way that he's very neutral, and in that
Yeah.
he, I was gonna say though that I don't think he's been making documentaries for a long time,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is I think the greatness is in his approach, not so much in his filmmaking.
An experience. Yeah.
I don't see him like as a genius documentarian or a genius filmmaker, or the cinematography is beautiful.
In the movie, in the documentaries,
In the
it's not
documentary, I'm
about, yeah.
saying
And I don't
it's not
think,
about
yeah,
the filmmaking. It's
it's
yeah.
very raw. It's very
Hmm.
raw.
Hmm.
Um, so this documentary, I waited for it
But
for a long time. And did you
sorry.
have more you wanted to say about the show?
I think there's a lot to say
There's a lot to say about the show.
there's a lot
Yeah.
to say about it. It's the rawness of the film.
Hmm.
It's not so much in, it's not future length cinema cameras. It's
Hmm.
probably like video camera style, a lot of grainy images, but
Yeah.
very beautiful photography.
In the documentary, in the full length documentary, I think it's a much better camera, much better setup, I think. You
Than he
definitely,
used to yeah,
well, it's
yeah.
also technology's changed. That was like 2000, early 2000s, but
Hmm.
um,
I could actually check anyway.
uh,
That's not the thing. Let's talk
yeah.
about the actual content
So
of it.
the newer documentary is Voice from the Forest. He goes back to some of the tribes that he had spent time with in the TV show, and
It's pretty much a
a lot of the theme of the show is to see how the modern world is influencing these groups, and his wish is that they navigate this modernization on their own terms and adopting what
Mhm.
they feel will be valuable, and see how the influences of modernization are affecting their traditions, way of life, perspective,
Right.
all that kind
And
of stuff.
it's also criticism on materialism, and materialistic driven behavior.
I think some of it is, but he also recognizes the change that the one group, I think they were in Malaysia, on the border, like Malaysia
Oh,
somewhere.
with the deforestation issue.
Right. So this group used to be one of the last standing purely nomadic, um,
100% nomadic. Like
100%
every
nomadic.
single possession goes with them when they travel.
Right. And so only recently they have moved to a like a permanent location with buildings and so
And
I
TV.
on TV.
Yeah.
I think it yeah, there's a really weird scene where someone's just sitting there and watching this really weird program clearly and
Yeah.
just to go from what you had seen with from their lives before and his interaction with them to this strange it just seems so strange but
Mm.
I think they touch on some of the negative influences of being in a permanent place with, the building and sort of how it changed the psychology. And maybe that's part of your, some of your observations of the documentary. Do you want to, what were some of your thoughts about um,
Um, I think it was
the
it was
documentary? I should finish sentences.
I do that
It's okay.
sometimes too, yeah.
Go on.
It felt like I've been thinking about this because I know the documentary is not, even though it's criticizing materialistic driven behavior,
Hmm.
it's not at all saying we should live like this and we're living wrong or our way of life is wrong and just like a blanket statement or a generalization. He
Yeah.
doesn't do that, and I think that's great. Um, but also, I think it lacks some closure. Maybe that, or maybe I was just left with some ambiguity, which I understand because filmmakers love ambiguity. Um, it's a beautiful
Hmm.
thing in filmmaking. The fact that you need to for yourself come up with a conclusion,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it won't chew it up for you and give it to you already made.
Right.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
But also, it's like it would be good to hear your conclusion,
Takeaway.
your takeaway.
Yeah.
I felt like I missed that. But some other thought is that he didn't need to. He was just observing. He was just making observations and saying, what can we learn from this? Is there anything we
Yeah.
could learn from this? Maybe incorporate it. Because I think the basic point is if materialism is the symbol of progression, then we're further ahead. But I think what the observation mainly is something around there's something more than just materialistic examples of progress.
Yeah.
So, what could we learn from these people that are inhabiting the same planet that we are,
Yeah.
and they're having these experiences? And the way that he's portraying those experiences really makes you stop and say, hmm, there's something else that I could learn from,
Right.
and that we could all learn from and benefit from. And he's not saying let's 100% switch. I think he wants to do that. I don't know if you knew, but he wants to make a tribe of his own, and it's gonna be like 100% thing, like just
Crazy.
like a new
Like a
society
cult.
from start, like a cult.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's gonna be the leader. He doesn't want it to be a cult, but it's like a sustainable society that he's
Sure.
gonna start from the start. But dude, of course, yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
This whole topic is something that is very, very hard to clarify my thoughts on. And I think that
Yeah.
the problem for me is that there are
I would
some
say, yeah, sorry.
there's the problem for me is that there's so much about pre-massive industrial society lifestyle or nomadic tribal lifestyle. There's so much
Hmm.
about that seems so much closer to the biology and evolutionary evolved psychology of the animals that we are all inhabiting. And the problem that I have is that I don't know how much of the of that you we could incorporate into the life that we are all as city dwellers, as being a part of this economy, as uh, associated with the narratives that we live in our culture, all of that stuff. To me, I just don't know how or if those things can be incorporated. Like in my mind, it's almost like one or the other. It seems like, and I totally know. Like we're talking about mindfulness and how to incorporate the present moment, which I can see being beneficial for many reasons at work, and as a part of your life that's already embedded in this culture that we're in. But I think that can only go so far. And the other day you were talking about the future, and you were talking about planning, and how much of how it's not like we can just be in the present moment at all times, because then we won't plan for the future. We won't enact plans and reap the benefits of that, which is all about short term, about planning and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's, to me, I'm just very confused about how to navigate this information and incorporate it into a life that is very um, opposing
Yeah. I
to
think it's, sorry, I cut you off.
no opposing to the variables and environment that would preclude being able to incorporate those things in your life.
Right. It seems so binary that you either live this way or you live that way. It
Yeah.
feels like you have to make a choice. You're either living a
Mindset.
Western mindset, or you're kind of renouncing to the productive Western world so that you can practice present immersion, let's
Yeah,
say.
and get the
It's all
benefits that are discussed about being in that state.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's just not like I want to be here and then it's a whole process where you have to quiet down the mind, broaden up the senses,
Yeah.
and you can't just make it happen by going to the forest on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I spent almost all yesterday in nature and try to like, and it's like I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not on a computer, but my mind still is.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts are rushing like just
Yeah.
digital speed, and it don't it that doesn't allow me to be there.
Mm-hmm.
If I would spend maybe a week there, maybe you get in the zone. Maybe you become part of the forest, right? I don't know. It
That's what
seems like it's
happens.
either or.
Yeah, that's what happens to me. I love going out camping. I love, especially the most as backcountry as I possibly can. I haven't in a while, but I love to go out solo as well, and just to be immersed in wherever I'm at and to notice what happens in the day and in the surroundings. And it takes a little while, but I definitely do completely change the way my thoughts are operating throughout the day. It becomes so oriented towards necessities. It becomes
Mhm.
so oriented towards I need more water. I gotta go to the river. I gotta, you know, um, put it through a filter. So I have to bring my filter. Then I have to come back and I got to make food. I'm probably going to need this. And so the main planning that happens is about today, usually. It's about what do I need today, maybe tomorrow, but it's all about is it going to rain? Is my fly up? All kinds of stuff about dealing with your current environment. And as soon
Mhm.
as you come back, the city becomes overwhelming, like traffic, the sounds. It's
Yeah.
incredible, and I can only imagine what Bruce Perry feels like when he's out of anybody. He's probably the most who's gone in and out of that
Yeah.
extremes.
That's
Um,
probably why he wants to start his own thing and
yeah,
just renounce and do his own so
yeah, but I think
structure.
the I guess the point of saying all that stuff was I have to get rid of that. I have to get rid of the mind. I have to change the mindset back into okay, it's 9 a.m. I need to get through this many hours of work. Here's my thing. I need to have this app open, this app open, this app open. I have to switch between these two. I need to have this. I need to have my Finder window over here so I can always access those files. And it's multitasking and it's being aware of time so aggressively and thinking about the future and planning and all that stuff. And it becomes like how much
Totally.
could you incorporate that into the present moment? And it's yeah, it's weird. It's almost like we're recognizing as a species what's happened to our uh, psychology as we've become hyper, like massive cities. Like we're only starting to notice how much that affects anxiety, stress, disconnectedness from the rest of society,
Exactly.
community,
Loneliness. Yeah,
loneliness,
totally.
all
So
this stuff.
if that is progress, then we're not like the greatest civilization that has ever lived, right?
Right. It's about how you define. It's about
It's
how
about how you
progress is
define.
defined. Yeah.
Hmm.
And we're very
But
defined by stuff.
by stuff, exactly. And that's probably the main um, yeah, that's probably the main critic of the film,
Hmm.
that much of our progress is defined by material progress.
Hmm.
And there's all this separation and loneliness and anxiety and very high neuroticism and then so you see these societies that are so connected and so happy and so human and touching and
Yeah.
sensible and it really makes you think, where's my balance, right? It
Hmm.
because it puts me in a binary mindset where I'm almost like, should I renounce to the whole thing? Should I become a monk? Should I like
Yeah.
it makes me think very this or that. But
Right.
I'm thinking that the answer is more in the balance because
Yeah.
at least I want to live in a city.
Hmm.
So even if it's not Mexico City in the future, I'm a city guy that enjoys for periods of time going out of the city and then immersing myself in it. And I like the
Hmm.
productivity of the city, and I really believe in the marshmallow test philosophy. And
What's
have
that?
you heard about that?
No.
It's very basic. It's basic in the way that it's easy to explain. So you tell a kid, I have a marshmallow right now. Do you want it? Most
Hmm.
people would say yes. Most kids would all kids would say yes. I want a
Yeah.
marshmallow right now. And then you tell them, okay, but if you wait 2 or 3 or 4 hours, I'll give you three marshmallows.
Right.
So
Delayed
you
gratification.
exactly, and tests have been done that 20 years later, the kids that could wait for the three marshmallows in 3 hours, not one right now, they do better in society and success as we define it, right?
Right.
But I'm what I'm saying is that I really think that's a good thing, and that I want to implement that for myself, and that I want to be more future driven and
Right.
to spend more time thinking of future and delaying instant gratification for future benefit. And it almost seems that the paradox is that if I am practicing future thinking and future driven behavior,
Hmm.
that I'm not spending time in the present and that
Right.
I'm not enjoying life right now.
That's the paradox.
But I think there's a balance that can be found.
Hmm.
And if you find that balance, if you do both, I think you'll succeed much better. You'll have much more clarity. You
Hmm.
won't have that disconnection, that high stress, neuroticism.
Hmm.
And it's almost like the meditation or the tapping out of the game for a while. It's like a medicine that's much needed.
So maybe it's using the concept of delayed gratification and planning for the future and being in the future mindset. Uh, it's using that as a tool for whatever result you want. And so, hey, anything can happen. Anything can happen on a Spoken Openness
Anything,
podcast.
anytime.
Anything, anytime. You think everything's
Yeah,
going well. You think there's two webcams up. Well, no, you're wrong. One goes
you are
down.
wrong.
This is the
But then
exciting
it comes
thing.
back.
Nice.
Didn't
Uh,
you didn't even know it happened.
the point is to use the future mindset, the thinking of the future, delayed gratification. It's using that for whatever result you would like. And so I guess the point that we're talking about is maybe you don't have to let the cultural narrative of material as the goal or as the marker of success, but
Mm,
design. So say your goal was to be able to spend 3 out of 5 days in a present moment state, engaging in the world around you with people you care about.
mm.
And I would like to be in that place in X amount of years, or hopefully in 1 or 2 years. So it's planning for the future, but it's planning for the future so you're able to
Like that.
incorporate more of the attributes that seem to be physiologically and psychologically beneficial.
I like that.
Um,
I like that.
beneficial.
And I think self awareness is such a huge thing.
Hmm.
You have to know what you want to happen in your life,
Right.
what you want for yourself. Maybe not like a super clear understanding of exactly where you're going or what are you turning yourself into,
Hmm.
but at least what you don't want, right? So
That's a
you,
great start.
because yeah, that's a great up to start to know that you're playing the game, but you don't want to end up like most people who are playing the game.
Hmm.
And by that I mean filled with stuff, but like dead inside.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't want that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just making a judgmental generalization on everyone,
Some
on
maybe,
most people,
yeah,
right? But yeah,
maybe there's a lot of people who they do that and it's they love it and it's actually that
sure,
they
yeah. But
but
how long do they love it for, though?
yeah, that's the thing. Well, that's I lost my train of thought. I also lost my bus of thought and the plane of thought.
Uh,
Um,
I think this is actually a very, very difficult conversation to have,
mhm.
and it feels like you need to kind of have your have a well thought opinion on it, or almost like a stance, like this is where I'm standing. So then
Right.
but I'm not, I don't feel like I'm standing anywhere. I just like saying what I think, and then
Mm-hmm.
I might change completely.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm also having the slight um, feeling that whenever I meditate or spend a whole day in nature and like tap away for for a few days
Yeah.
from the game, um, sometimes I feel like I'm just wasting time and
Yeah.
getting behind. And most of the time, but it's weird. It feels like I there's this mechanism inside of me that should be executing and achieving, and through action molding my reality
Mm-hmm.
all every day as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Um, but we've talked about this before, and we agree that it's a very tiresome game. That
Mm-hmm.
you need the timeout. You need
Yeah.
the letting go and the breathing and the reconnecting with yourself and your true intentions and the
Yeah.
present moment that allows self-awareness to happen, I think. Yeah.
Well, totally. And I think we agree that in general, a giant premise is both and so it's the balance, and it's trying to figure out how much both and how much uh,
Exactly.
and uh, um, the main thing that's beneficial about conversations like this, even though you might not have a clear decision on where you stand exactly, or how you conceive of the future in what mindset or whatever what values you have.
Hmm.
I think that being able to consciously consider uh, what your goals are, and what the both and in your life might be most satisfying and healthy, and all of these other
Yeah.
things in your
Having a master plan.
a master
Mm.
plan, yeah, and
Yeah,
not automatically basing it on the narratives that you see around you, and go,
totally.
what's the master plan, and then you absorb it and go like, everyone says this, I'm going to do that, or I also wanted to mention that, ow, my ankle. I also wanted to mention that and we could talk about this. Something I find really funny,
Hmm.
and that I get into the trap of, is fetishizing anything that's non-Western. Uh,
What do you
and
mean by that?
well, I think I noticed you notice it a little bit in Bruce Perry and in Tawai and stuff like that. It's romanticizing non-Western and romanticizing
Oh
the
yeah, I
forest.
love that. Of
Yeah,
course, because it's
yeah,
an alien culture, or it's like
right.
a new thing where that you can discover, and then the first process of that discovery is always romantic.
Right, but I also think that we have a thing in the West where we romanticize. We are very um, I don't know. There's a modern trend of like, the other day I was walking on the street and I
Hmm.
saw this guy in like a robes, like in Buddhist clothing,
Hmm.
and he walked by, and this girl with a smoothie in Kitsilano, Vancouver, which is a very like yoga, but for the appearance of it, like like I have a
Uh-huh.
yoga and the smoothie, and
Hmm.
they walked by and they looked at him, and then they made it a point to make like a very like
Of course, yeah,
ooh,
totally imagine. Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
so like you're a monk, like you're a like
She even could say like namaste.
yeah. Yes, dude, yes. uh
Satnam.
Sadhana, and and he's probably like, oh, I want to go get smokes, or I don't know what,
Totally, yeah.
and I
Yeah.
just think that it's funny to make sure not to uh, fall down the trap of like these tribal communities are living in harmony and peace,
Mm,
and they're always in the present moment, and everybody has a connection, and they're, and
right.
we're
I
so this
guess.
and which is touched on the documentary. I will say he did a good job of being like, and I paint on the poet, the romanticized version, and they have their problems and all this stuff, but it tends to be in the direction of romanticizing, and we do that a lot. uh, but
Yeah, and also apart from romanticizing it, which we of course do with a lot of things,
yeah,
and mostly, yeah, of course, Western cultures and traditions, but the fact that our own tradition, no, we don't even have a tradition. It's like we were rootless in Western society. Most of um, I don't know. I guess
I would
because
say
of
we're all,
immigration,
yeah,
there's so much immigration, and like you grew up in a different country.
yeah,
I in Mexico, I always felt like I didn't belong because I looked like an outsider.
yeah, same.
And
I was in
for
Indonesia.
right, exactly, yeah. So you feel disconnected.
Hmm.
You feel like you don't have roots. Some people they're born where their great
Yeah,
grandfather was born, and they feel like they belong there, and
yeah,
there's roots and there's tradition, and I am Native American, or
yeah.
like you could like and I have, like I can't say I am Mexican, or I can't, I'm
Hmm.
only geographically Mexican,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
right? But I have different roots with my father and different roots with my mom, and
Yeah,
it doesn't really feel like I belong, like I really belong in a tradition or
yeah.
a.
Well, yeah,
It's
that's
and yeah, it makes me feel like Graham Hancock when he says that that the native people say that we have lost our connection to spirit, which
right.
kind
And
of
and
means like we
also
don't have any roots. We don't
and
have any real roots.
and another quote is, "We're a species with amnesia."
Right. Hmm.
Which is a slightly different topic, but that whole thing, that's the a large part of that. There's two factors, I think. One is like the third culture kid phenomenon, where I guess you're growing up in an environment that isn't necessarily your parents or your historic root, but then also there's also the Western thing where it's so new. It's so new, and there isn't a long history that people feel connected to. And there's also a massive guilt and embarrassment about the past, and about all the negative things which did happen of the past. Although
Yeah.
everything didn't happen in a vacuum, the world has been a pretty incredibly vicious place over the whole globe for a long period of time. But um, I think there's yeah, we do have no roots, and um, I think a large part of why, you know and in the Enlightenment, and in the killing of God, so to speak, we even lost religious structures on a massive scale, where we're still
Yeah.
seeing people leave religious traditions. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think there has been a tendency for a massive operating system vacuum among people, where
Yeah.
they're looking for a new framework and identity,
Yeah.
and it's I think it seems increasing in terms of the void, and also the devotion to which people are adopting new and arbitrary, whether it's like vegan or CrossFit or whatever it is,
Feels like you need to
atheism.
follow a discipline, or it's like the new religion is to follow a new tradition,
Yeah,
or
scientism could be a thing,
yeah.
and all of them have a history, and all of them have the key players, and all of them have like
Hmm.
the priests, the people who you follow on Twitter and who you
Sure.
yeah, and I think that's maybe one of the ways people are feeling that unconnectedness is becoming deeply identified with random groups or affiliated things, which that could be a whole other topic.
Yeah, it's also maybe a an answer to all the technological advancements, the information overload,
Yeah.
the the super connected world that we're living in.
Hmm.
I think it's a necessity for people to join a group where
Yeah.
they belong and where that they can follow certain rules. So I think most people need a Tupperware structure, like
Yeah.
Tupperware like structure where they can just
Ideologies.
ideologies, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and even if the ideology or the community is based on a non-religious or
Yeah.
non-ideology type of system,
Yeah.
it's still the same experience where you're joining a preformed, already
Yeah.
walked by, already.
Yeah.
And I guess for a lot of people, that's the right thing to do because I do believe it's intelligent to follow a formula that has to follow a formula that people before you have followed and it's turned out to be successful for them.
100%.
I think that's a very intelligent thing to do, and that's what most people that are in need of discipline or belonging to
Hmm.
a structure or like
Yeah.
philosophy guideline thing. But that takes away the room for you to think for yourself.
Yes. And here, this is one of the this is maybe the fundamental reason for these discussions for me. I think is because I and a lot of it has to do with reading Terrence McKenna personally.
Mhm.
Was the concept of it? I didn't even know what an ideology was, and I really got into the concept and listening to his lectures, and
Took
the
me a while to understand. Yeah.
yeah, and the concept that nobody knows what's going on, and the concept of being in control of your belief system and being in control of. The problem is, and here's the thing, I feel like I I struggle and have increased anxiety in a state where I don't have an adopted framework or ideology. And I think that that's normal because it
Mhm.
feels good and it's easy because now you don't have to fucking worry
You just have
about
to follow the
narratives.
guidelines,
Just, I know this is a good way to kind of go about things, and it's
stick to
time
it, and that's
saving, and
it.
you can quickly join being productive and not think about stuff like that, and you can, you know all that stuff. But that being said, I think it's right, and I don't want to adopt a collection of ideas as a batch, even
Right.
though, no matter how attractive or good it feels or any of that stuff. So then it becomes super important to clarify those things slowly so you can start to have a place that feels honest and representative of your reality and genuine for yourself as a
Exactly.
replacement. The problem is it is ever evolving, and that's
It
that's
is. And it that puts you in a position to be in the brink of chaos
yeah,
almost always.
right,
Because, but let's just say I believe by saying this, we're not discarding immersing ourselves for a while. I've done it, you've done it in a
totally.
specific tradition and like
I love it.
studying, understanding it,
Yeah,
but not marrying it for life to it,
yeah,
right? And there's much more experience to gather from immersing yourself in different traditions and understanding what each of them has to offer and how you can
Yeah.
take little things from here and this serves me, this doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
and end up with a work frame that really works for you and
Yeah.
that you design for yourself, not out of nowhere, but out of the experiences of the traditions that already work, because the answers are there. That's about it.
Yeah.
And I think we're having this approach because we want to,
Yeah.
not because we
Totally.
think it's the only way. It's just because we want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think you allow yourself to adopt certain aspects of various uh, ideologies or philosophies or groups of thinking, but I think the what becomes important for me, I think, and what I should do more is to clarify frameworks that I currently feel are the most associated to reality, and not devoting myself to them, or devoting is the wrong word, or completely believing in them, but allowing them to be a sturdy placeholder, instead of what I feel like to massive questions. There's like cabinets, and I'm constantly taking and putting in the file that I consider to be, and what I think I need to do more is have placeholders and keep them in there until some super in-depth conversation or discussion clarifies something, and I replace it with something else and see how that feels. But really feeling like you give structure to the process of
Yeah.
developing the way that you perceive reality. And as an example, I think I found when we did the practice of doing Echo and Cod every morning, doing
Hmm.
the chant every morning. Uh, there's something to repetition, and we can discuss the effect of repetition, and we can
Exactly.
discuss the effect, and maybe how to incorporate it without having to have some dude on a picture on a
Yeah.
wall, and then have to adopt everything else that goes along with it.
So we make it about the tool, not about the belief
Right.
system around the tool. And I think
Yeah.
that's what happens that times change, times evolve, lifestyle changes, culture changes. And if you're trying to stick with a maybe outdated system, you're gonna run into uh, things that don't work and things that feel weird.
Right.
Um, I'd say for most people that will happen, that you'll run into some belief system that you don't completely agree with,
Yeah.
and either you embrace it and live with it and now have a belief system in your life that works for most people. But I think we could agree that belief is powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because placebo is a very powerful thing.
Yep.
But what's more powerful is the actual tool, the actual action that has a result.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say maybe it's more powerful, but you can take the tool, and another thing is a whole other topic, but using placebo as a tool and incorporating that
True.
into using and designing how you want to incorporate that placebo, and that's a massive. This is a
Yeah,
huge topic, and I think
it
that
is.
we can also start. I know we're getting at 1 hour 20 here. We could start on the next one or keep going for a little bit. I still feel all right. Um,
Hmm.
that was a weird self-assessment little
No,
section
we're
there.
we're flowing. We're good.
Um,
Have energy.
uh, I lost one idea, but something that I did want to touch on
Yeah.
was this idea that I also maybe need to realize and keep at the forefront of ideas that come up, and ways of um, thinking about the world and reality, is the notion that I may never end up with the final file in those cabinets. That
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's normal. It's like to think that
You'll have
nobody
more questions though.
the idea that to think that nobody knows what's going on, but I'm gonna figure it out. I think I need a lot something in me, and it's I
I,
don't it's not like an it's not coming from a place of ego. Well, maybe it's coming from an ego standpoint, but not in a place of like I can figure it out and I will be able to come to all the answers, but an ego standpoint of safety of like I need to have an answer so that I feel better about having an answer and so that I can be grounded and feel and rather
that's not
than
a thing.
I
I,
know it's
I
not a thing,
think,
but I think that all the
yeah,
time. A huge a huge feeling in my body is I need to figure it out.
yeah, yeah,
That's a feeling
yeah.
that's constant. It's like how come everybody else doesn't want to figure it out? You
Yeah,
know,
totally.
everybody else seems fine to not figure it
Yeah,
out.
and you
You
have
know what
this
I'm saying?
urgency to comprehend it all.
Yeah. Like what's
Yeah,
going on? What are we doing?
yeah,
Where
yeah.
are
I
we?
think I see that as a blessing, though,
Yeah.
which has curse part to it,
Yeah.
because you have this urgency that has some neuroticism, high anxiety to
Yeah.
it, of
100%.
course. Yeah, but I think it's a very good thing. It could you could say it's just curiosity
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I think it comes part and parcel with the feeling of wonder.
hmm,
I like I
wonder
like
junkie.
yeah, I like being able to be amazed by mundane things.
And that's exactly why I would argue that you would never get
Yeah.
that satisfaction of, okay, now I think I get it. Because more answers will just create twice as much questions.
Yeah.
And so it's never ending. But that's a good thing because that's why we would never run out of things to talk about in this podcast.
Right. But maybe
We
it's an
will, ne
endless search. It is an endless search.
it is, and that's
Yeah.
exciting.
It is exciting
Yeah.
because there's always more to learn and to think about and to
Mm.
um
You don't know where it can take you, this endless search.
yeah, it feels valuable, fun. I for sure there's an ego part of it where it's just
Sure.
familiar with the feeling of searching and trying to come to a conclusion or have an answer to things. Um
And it's
and
also
I
addictive
right.
in the, sorry to cut you off, but to kind
Yeah.
of add to that, you do get this hormonal or chemical excitement
Mhm.
when you feel like you're putting pieces together,
Yeah.
and or like when you have this experience of, oh, this is it.
Maybe it's
Of
this.
course, like 10 seconds later there's 100 other questions, but
Yeah.
that moment where you understand and you think you nailed it and like this is it, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we get addicted to that because there's a chemical aspect to it that we
100%.
need to search for again. That
Yeah.
was it.
It's like no, I totally agree. It's like the Instagram thing or the social media thing where you scroll and you get little dopamine hits because you're seeing something novel, but
Hmm.
it comes from an internal assimilation of ideas and thoughts, and then something new emerges, and then you get a dopamine from that. Uh, but I like that, and I'm gonna convince myself that that's more wholesome and better than. It's
Yeah,
slower.
then
It is
just
slower.
following.
It is slower. It happens very rarely, and it feels profound, and then it dies out, and you have to keep searching. But
And
I also just one thing that I just wanted to tag your it was I think I do need to work on uh, being completely content with the fact that I'll never figure it out. That's something I do need to work on.
mhm. Right, but I think that's exactly the same as last conversation when we were talking about lifestyle design and life structure and order.
Yeah.
it's just this the same as saying you'll never have your life in order. It's just you won't,
Yeah.
because you need to always be redesigning, reordering, coming up with new structures because
Right.
structures get outdated.
Right.
That's why mental structures and your current way of comprehending reality and finding out that it makes sense and feels awesome because there's order now,
Mm-hmm.
that will disappear super quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just
So it's
like
it's the it's the consistent it's the consistent trajectory towards a self-defined value system or goal, aim, and then managing that and altering it and changing it and it will flow and it will change. But it's as long as you're continuing to aim up, I guess, right?
yeah, that's why the concept of practice
Yeah.
resonates a lot with us because it's everything is a practice.
Yeah.
Um, and that I think that has to do reconnecting with a previous topic,
Mm-hmm.
um, where we were talking about future thinking.
Yep.
Would you say that we're the only animal that thinks of the future? More, and I'm maybe going to the theory where we're so intelligent because we're aware of our mortality.
Yeah.
But that future thinking ability,
I'll tell you what I
I
think. I
lost my
can no,
train of thought.
I can. This is what I believe right now. I believe that other animals have behaviors that are associated with future thinking, like animals hoarding food so that in the future they have the food. You know. However, I'm currently under the understand or the assumption or the belief that they don't do those behaviors coexist or simultaneously with an awareness and will purposeful action when it comes to that. I think in my mind, they're animals are driven by evolutionary evolved circuits in the mind that have certain rewards, dopamine rewards, systems, so that when they have a certain behavior, they feel good about it,
Yeah.
and that those have evolved over time. But for some reason, it seems like, and maybe dolphins and other animals are aware, but human beings seem to be based on our sensory input and the way that we look at the world. We could be completely wrong, but we seem to be the only ones that really discovered the future from an awareness point, from a, from a, yeah, like a constantly aware and thinking of future and running simulations. We run simulations of
Mm,
the future
mm,
so that we don't have to physically die. We can run a simulation of what if I did this, then this would probably happen, then this would probably happen, and then maybe I get hit by a car. I'm not going to do
yeah.
that. I'm going to do this instead. So we have complex future simulation processing abilities that we constantly do. And
Yeah, it's a problem solving thing because
yeah.
the future becomes a problem.
Yes, yeah.
And so we need to solve it today so that
Yeah.
it doesn't actually become a problem. But the future is, even though it's not real, we treat it as if it were real.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah,
That's where apprehension comes from, fear. We treat the future as real even though it hasn't happened yet. Fear of failure, fear of I'm afraid this is going to happen or
or
based on things from the
desire.
past, yeah, or desire. Yeah.
Hmm. So that's why the Buddhist Hindu approach is no desire, no fear,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like if you get rid of your future thinking ability,
Right.
not ability, they would say it's a disease
Yeah.
almost, right?
You're
Desire is disease. Yeah.
you're not
So if
worried
you get
about the
rid of that,
outcome. Sorry to cut
And
you
then you
off.
get to, that's what I was gonna say. You get to enjoy your life right now.
Yeah.
It seems contradictory, or it seems counterintuitive almost for
Right.
me as a Westerner,
Yeah.
to say what, just no desire.
Right.
It's almost seems like I need to settle into my you could see it as kill your own potential too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because your potential is your future.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a real sense of potential in everyone, even though the future isn't real. But
Mm-hmm.
potential is. That's weird.
It is really
So
weird.
if you kill desire, you kill your potential, then you become enlightened, or you maybe not become enlightened, but you become aware of everything that is happening now.
Right, but if you right, and that could potentially lead to a more fulfilling uh, um, fulfillment of your potential than if you had a desire and you thought of your
Mm,
potential. You know what I mean?
maybe yeah,
So
that's
like
like
if
the
you if
trick.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you think of your what you desire and you have a potential to achieve things that will result in that desire, then you're going to be thinking about it, and then you'll have fear associated with it. And then when you move forward, you're apprehensive and you may not be completely. However, there's also an element of being prepared for things that might unfold that are necessary.
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
it's definitely a both and situation.
Right. And
But
I again made it seem like a binary thing.
yeah,
It's crazy.
we
Yeah.
do that so much. Everything is either or. Why do we
It's
always think either or?
it's habit, I think,
We're so
because
either or. I don't think
and
it's just
it's
us though. Culture is very
yeah.
either or. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also harder to have a conversation where it takes longer to think in terms of multivariate
Yeah.
problems.
And maybe
It's
yeah,
so hard to always, when you're trying to make a point, always account for the different variables,
yeah. And
right?
maybe that's why we always adopt a black or white and then the other person will adopt the opposite just so
Seems more practical.
we can outsource the
Hmm.
nuance. It's like I'll be
But
a 1, you be a 0, let's figure it out.
right,
Uh
but then the consciousness comes in, and then we're like, but
yeah.
it's not either or. It's
But
both and.
yeah, and I had an idea of something else, but I'm going to go into this just because it's flow and I'm flowing with it.
Yeah.
But if you um, going back to ideologies and thinking about ideologies, uh, or even having nothing to do with ideology, just having beliefs. I think the number one thing to do is to consume information that is always opposite to that belief that you hold. Uh,
Say that again.
to always prioritize the consumption of information that's opposite to your current belief or framework. It's to constantly be reminding yourself of the possibility of nuance.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. Like if you, I did this. I've done this, and it's been super interesting. But to make new Twitter accounts and then follow completely opposite groups of people, and to make them like a binary account, but make it like full on, and to add only this certain viewpoint for a certain subject or something, people who talk about something, and fill it up and make that the thing that you look at most if your viewpoint is the opposite, and to consistently do that as a practice to remind yourself of the non-binary nature of uh, the possibilities of truth. And I find that really rewarding, and it's another practice because you have to put your ego aside, and
Yeah.
and you have to face it. Yeah.
Face
A
it.
random thought. Yeah.
I like that. I I think it's not a usual thing to be inclined towards the opposite.
Right.
I think that it's sort of a blessing that we like doing that
Hmm.
because we've had the experience of doing that in the past and realizing we come up with something new or that you learned something
A
new.
novelty. Yeah.
Because in a world where opposites, not a world, a worldview
Hmm.
where opposites coexist in the same worldview, which
Yeah.
we're trying to come up with, we're trying to
Yeah.
evolve into that.
Yeah.
You need to have that relationship of the opposites in yourself and
Yeah.
go from being in an opposite and then being in an opposite and
Yeah.
then through that understanding kind of getting to that balance point,
Yeah.
I
That's
think.
the Hegelian dialectic. Is the he was
I didn't know that.
a
That's
massive influence on Marx, Karl Marx,
mm,
and a massive kind of philosophical approach to uh, coming up with notions of what's true. But it's not.
yeah,
He shouldn't get full credit. That's an alchemical, ancient, esoteric idea.
right.
The both and thing is ancient.
It
Um,
is.
but his whole thing was, yeah, you look at both sides and then you try to find the middle, because that's probably going to be the most accurate. But yeah, it's a practice. It's a
And
practice.
it's not at all common. It's not like a well known thing to do. Maybe I'm not expressing myself correctly, but what I'm saying
Right.
is most people think that there's a responsibility to take a side.
Yeah.
In order to have an opinion, you need to stand
Yeah.
somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
That's maybe some habit that's not really serving us.
Right. And also the increase of immediate reaction to an idea instead of the discussion. So it's like,
Yeah.
if you are exploring what's true, you're going to talk about the opposite side to what could be what, again, both side, none of the side is going to be 100% right, but you have to make statements exploring the opposite to what you may currently hold, and the
Mm,
immediate reaction to that is going to be attack, especially on social media, depending, and it gets heated on various subjects. But we need to. We were talking about the other day about sort of this resonant habits that are formed on the internet of people of what it is being created as we use it over time, and that what it is that's being created by our use of it is becoming more and more ingrained, and that means that that's the song that's going to be played in the future in terms of the relationship to the technology. And
mhm.
we need to learn, or we need to change the way that we communicate about things online. And I would love to see everybody participating in long form conversations online to get beyond the Twitter style minimum characters, uh, sh- emotionally charged shouting matches where there is
Mhm.
no room for nuance. And it's that problem. It's no room for both and.
I think it has also a lot to do with the tradition of debating, where you have to stand for one, you have to stand for a belief
Mm-hmm.
or what you think it's true, and you have to debate to try to
Yeah.
have the best argument and persuade the other people, the other person or the group.
Right,
But
but I think group is key because the persuasion and
mhm,
the motivation for that argumentative aspect of communication, that motivation comes from the teaming up, from the grouping, from the
mhm.
identifying with a clan, and that's
Yeah,
because
and an
if you're just
ideology.
if you right if you're just an individual and you're not associated with a group or a bunch of people that would turn on you or cheer for you or whatever it is, then you don't care about saying something for the sake of discovering the truth. You can say whatever you want. But as soon as you're part of a group, you need to know how they might react if you say something. So you need to make sure that you are saying the thing that you're going to get praise for, or
Right.
you're going to
Mhm.
get the coins, the money, the social brownie points, the whatever it is, and
It
then
becomes a war. It
becomes a
becomes this,
war. Yeah.
and I'm not shitting on debate at all.
No,
What
no,
I guess
it's
that the point
useful.
I'm making is it's useful if if you see it as a tool,
Yeah.
not as the game you have to win, or as
Yeah.
the defending your argument is not the goal.
Yeah.
It's a thing you do so that you can prove what's the word? You can make sure that you're in the right
You can
path.
test. You can
You
test
can
your
test
argument. Yeah.
things. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So when we're having these conversations, sometimes we will take sides,
Uh-huh.
but we're only going to do that so that not because we believe the side we're taking and we need to defend it,
Yeah.
and
Although that
we're
happens.
we're in the war. I like when that happens,
Yeah.
but we both know it's happening
Yeah.
because we'll come up to a new understanding
Yeah.
by doing that.
Yeah.
It's not because we're actually debating. We we simulate the debate
Mm-hmm.
it, so that the conversation flows and there's new understandings that emerge from it.
Right. Hopefully. Or you can hear yourself
Hopefully.
and you can hear yourself saying the things.
Right.
And you
And actually say them and make the exercise of putting the idea into words and seeing if it
yeah.
works, testing it.
Yeah. Listening. Yeah.
That's true. Also
Yeah.
listening. And that's also how you test the arguments that you have and have built up before.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to what the other person has to say or add or test
Yeah.
or attack.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but that's because you want to learn, not because you want to. Testing may not be the right word because you when you test something, you really want it to work. Um,
I guess the scientific method, the Karl Popper falsification style that's become most correlated with science is the idea that you can't prove something's true. You can only prove that it's wrong or try to disprove it. And if you can make predictions and you can try to disprove it, but if you can't disprove it, then and you can make predictions, then that's current kind of the current truth. But I think disproving should be the standard way of approaching ideas as opposed to fortifying um,
hmm.
and arguing
So
and trying to prove it right, you know?
so when we're both in some argument, I almost need to help you beat me. I almost need to help
Hmm.
you come up with your best argument, right? Because
But you
I
also
may,
need to try to clarify your position as
right.
accurately as possible so that the
Hmm.
other person can learn from it, right? So
Exactly. It's both, but
it's both. It's
uh,
almost like you need to have an argument, but then always switch, and always do both, maybe. Or the
because the thing about debates is that the more verbally inclined or the best structured argument will win,
right, the
not the
orator,
truth.
the rhetorician.
You
Yeah,
can make it seem like
yeah,
your argument is unbreakable,
Yeah.
thus you win.
Using
But
ethos,
like
logos,
you
and
don't want
pathos.
that.
Yeah.
That's maybe the worst that could happen when you win a debate where where
Yeah.
where you're not right and you only won because you outspoke the other person or you have a firmer argument.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying you need to help the other person word their argument correctly if they're
Yeah.
not doing it. And that has to that's the humility of saying, maybe I don't have the right answer. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
That's the thing that's always frustrated me about rhetoric. About so Aristotle clarified the early methods of rhetoric and influenced by other people, but he's the one that really wrote the books and methods and approaches to convincing. That's the art of convincing people, and there's discussions between
Hmm.
between Plato and Aristotle, and Plato was like, "Hey man, this is unethical. I don't think rhetoric is ethical." And Aristotle would be like, it is about ethical because then you can use these ways of getting the most ethical thing to happen because you can convince people that this is the real thing and you can make things happen that are better overall and you can
Hmm.
convince people of the correct. But what bothers me is, I guess that's true, but what bothers me is it's a perspective and it's an approach to language where the approach goes from, on the one hand, coming up with the best solution together and in a sort of a symbiotic uh, uh, experience. It goes from that to purely trying to manipulate. And
Hmm.
and I have always sided with Plato on that in that discussion. I've always
Hmm.
felt like rhetoric is used on the whole for manipulation and for bad. And I think we really need to do something as a society to changing the mindset of
Yeah.
conversations, of arguments, of all of that stuff to a more symbiotic, just like we were discussing. I really think that
Yeah, I
that's,
agree. Right. Because
yeah,
it's not all relative.
Plato
And that
2019.
we may go there right now. I need to say something.
Yeah,
This is an issue with long form, consistent long form conversations.
yeah,
I need to take like a super quick 2-minute bathroom break,
sure. I'll do the
super
same.
fast.
I'll
Because I
try
don't,
to.
I would like to keep talking. I don't know how you feel, but
Yeah,
uh,
I'm.
I don't want to end it right now.
I think my energy's draining a little bit, but I have a little more time in me, so I'll see if I can just mute and make it a black screen, and then we'll see if I can get
Okay,
it back going. So
try to be super fast.
cool. I'll be back. Peace.
All right, peace.
see if this works. Yeah, we're back.
Awesome. Quick 2 minute break.
Quick 2 minute break.
Um, I like where our conversation was going.
Mm-hmm.
I think touching on the debate thing and the non-binary arguments and humility to test your own arguments and help the other person better form their arguments.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's exactly what we're practicing here, I think.
Yeah. One of the solutions, I guess, to the confusion that can happen in arguments, Carl Rogers, the psychologist, he thought that a good solution was to summarize the person you're talking to, summarize their argument in a way that they agree with at the end. So if
Right.
and I think that,
Making a small summary of what the other person said so that
yeah,
they know you understand.
exactly. And you have to do it in a way that convinces them that you completely understand, and that it's not that you just don't see it the way they see it. It's just
Exactly.
that you don't agree, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes your not agreeing more believable or more cohesive. Because you're
Yeah.
actually letting the other person know that you do understand and you are hearing them.
Mm-hmm.
You are listening, and that helps you have a better argument because then it's just not the opposite that you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, and you could even even make the other person change their minds that way,
Right.
like guiding them through through their thought process.
Right. I also think it could be beneficial to summarize what their point is in words that they agree with, and then also going back and forth, maybe suggesting the pieces of the opposing argument that are most convincing, or the ones that are most making you think about it, uh, so that you could maybe help each other improve their argument, but also start looking for some of those middle ground, or start looking for maybe some of the truth that is related to both points of view. And that's really what we need from conversations, is those nuggets that come from the in between. And we almost never get those nuggets.
Yeah, I really think that this type of dialogue, authentic dialogue, which is the word I'm using for it right now,
Yeah.
may not be accurate, but it feels accurate, authentic dialogue. Feels more accurate than debate or just the plain conversation. I think it should be as necessary as brushing your teeth, taking out the garbage,
Yeah.
meditating, having long form, authentic dialogue.
Yeah.
Um, it's probably basic to developing cognitive ability,
Yeah.
developing opinion, uh, having,
Probably empathy,
yeah,
compassion, detaching your
mhm,
ego from ideas. Um,
and developing your understanding of the world
yeah.
and your own terms for it, I think.
Yeah. And I guess some of these things we will find out if we continue to do this on a regular basis. I think we should be very as we get into higher numbers, we should really clarify maybe what we feel has changed or if anything's changed. Maybe we need to make alterations to what we talk about, how we talk about it, in order to reach kind of the
Yeah,
goals that and things that we want to reach in
of
having these
course.
discussions.
Hmm. Plus,
Um,
they're fun.
yeah, 100%.
It's super fun.
I will say that our little 2 minute break kind of killed flow a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm
I know
feeling
it did.
pretty.
Mm.
Maybe it's time to finalize it, even after the quick little
Yeah,
break.
of course.
We're coming up on the 2 hour mark, which is pretty crazy.
That's become our established time frame, I think.
Yeah,
Around
maybe.
that, 1:30, 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's good. Longer gets trickier.
Yeah, if it's longer, I think I would need to figure out caffeine intake and food intake, and it would have to become
Hmm.
more technical with energy coordinating. But
It couldn't be that much longer, though. Maybe 40 minutes more,
yeah,
making it at around 3 hours. But I
that's
think that should only happen without us noticing,
yeah. I don't
right?
think we should ever have a time goal because then
Mm.
we'll be trying to reach a time.
Yeah,
Um,
we never start with a time goal, which is great.
so this was awesome, and as of now, we're hoping to go on Thursday or Friday.
I'd like Thursday.
Thursday,
What do
sure,
you think?
sure.
All right.
Thursday works. And it looks like our streams are still up, so that's great.
Yeah,
Hopefully that worked out, but we'll check it right after. So awesome. Thanks, man.
this was a great conversation.
Great
I appreciate it.
conversation.
Thank you, bro.
And see you on the next one.
All right. Peace.